And Mr. Davis, when you get to where you're going, say hello to Hitler, say hello to Dahmer, and say hello to Bundy. And good riddance, and the sooner you get there, the better we all are.
The trial spawned anger, hate, and bitterness as Richard Allen Davis continues to torment the family of the little girl that he killed. Talk with Marc and Joe Klaas about the insults and gut-wrenching accusations their family endures from an awful killer. It's time to talk back. CNN's interactive talk show. I'm Yolanda Gaskins in for Susan Rook here at CNN Center in Atlanta. Well, yesterday, Richard Allen Davis was sentenced to death for kidnapping and killing 12-year-old Polly Klaas. It was a painful day inside the courtroom where, in a statement to the court, Davis made an outrageous accusation.
The circumstances of this case were horrendous, and I cannot find that your background could in any way be considered any kind of a moral justification or extenuation for your conduct.
He eliminated a beautiful life, yet he laughs at us and he flips us off in court. My family finds it offensive that we have to breathe the same air as this killer. Polly's loss affects us all. She was a dear, wonderful person who brought love, light, and laughter into the lives of all who knew her, and she will be missed terribly.
I now have one last statement to make. To Eve Nichols and her family, for what it's worth, I do offer my sincere apology. To certain members of the Klaas family, I also offer the same. I would also like to state for the record that the main reason I know that I did not attempt any lewd act that night was because of a statement the young girl made to me when walking her up the embankment. Just don't do me like my dad. I have to pay my dues, so should
Burn
you.
in hell, Davis.
Mr. Richard Allen Davis, it is the order of this court you shall suffer the death penalty, said penalty to be inflicted within the walls of the state prison in San Quentin, California.
The death sentence will be appealed, so it's not over yet for the Klaas family. Let's welcome Marc Klaas and his father, Joe. Now, Marc is Polly's father, and since her disappearance, he's become a spokesperson for missing and exploited children through the Polly Klaas Foundation. Thank you both for being here. We really appreciate it. You know, I was here yesterday in the studio. We were preparing for the show, and we were watching what was going on, and it was the same kind of reaction here in the audience that you had in the courtroom. And I think if a few of the people here in the audience had the opportunity to, they would have done the same thing you did. We stopped and just kind of, it took a moment to really comprehend, what is he saying? Did you do the same thing?
No, I heard it immediately, Yolanda. What I was reacting to was my mother. She was wounded to the depth of her soul, and she was groaning audibly. And he's continuing to victimize my family. He's now trying to kill the rest of us in his own way. And that's what I'm very concerned about, the health of my mother. And that's what this whole reaction was about.
Well, it was, as I said, it took a second to try to understand what he was trying to say. Why does this man target you particularly? It's obvious that it feels to me that he sat in his cell trying to think of the way he could hurt you the most.
Well, I'm his worst nightmare, just like he was my daughter's worst nightmare. And I am hounding him to his death, just like he hounded her to hers. And I think he understands that if I hadn't been there pursuing him like I was, that he might not have been caught and he might still be out there committing crimes.
Well, students from, stand by, students from American University will be joining us now by way of MCI desktop video conferencing. And let's see, I think that there's someone who had a question there. Brad, you have a question you'd like to ask? Hi, Brad.
Yes. What were your views on capital punishment before the murder, and how they changed after Polly's murder?
Well, I was soft on capital punishment.
No, that's not the problem.
I was soft on capital punishment prior to Polly's murder. I didn't have an opinion one way or the other, but now I understand things much more clearly than I did before. Certainly, he has said that he will continue to sexually relieve himself, thinking of victims of past crimes twice daily. And as long as he's allowed to do that, Paulie will continue to be re-victimized. He also does not understand the value of human life. And I think until he takes his dead man's walk towards his own execution, he will still be unaware of that. And this might be a revelation for him. And if it takes that to learn the lesson, then so be it. And we have also given him the power of God. And I think that when we give somebody the power of God by allowing them to have the judgment over life and death, then we have to reciprocate, particularly if it's evil, which it generally is, you know, unless it's a reciprocal arrangement like this. And if we allow him to live, then evil triumphs over good and begets more evil. And I sincerely believe that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, 2 words. Richard Speck.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was asking the audience just before the show, we were, you know, talking about all of this. Have you ever encountered anyone like this before? I mean, I think some of us don't understand how he's reacting. We're trying to think of this man in a logical, rational way, as if we expect him to act rationally, but he's not a rational person.
No, he's a classic psychopath is what he is. He has no consideration for the consequences of his actions. He's remorseless. He has no conscience. He has no empathy. He has no love within himself. And everything is done for instant self-gratification. That's what motivated him to kill my daughter. That's what motivated him to victimize all of the women prior to my daughter. That's what the gesture was all about when he was convicted the first time in the guilt phase, and that's what this was about yesterday. He is not doing himself a service by this. He is opening a window into his soul and giving people an understanding of what psychopaths are all about. And I hope that this is a lesson that we can all learn.
Yes, it's very interesting for us to watch this because a lot of us just don't understand how anyone like this could really exist in society.
Yeah.
Chandra has a question. Go ahead, Chandra.
Yeah, my question is, how do you feel about the publicity that has been given to this brutal psychopath?
Well, I think it's very unfortunate. I was on another CNN show last night where a couple of his family members were, and he was also on another television program giving an interview. And I think when somebody has crossed this line, and when somebody is murdering and maiming, that they should not be given any forum outside of the courtroom, which is the legal forum for them to present their case.
Marc, what about the forum inside the courtroom?
Yeah.
This opportunity to make a final statement was an opportunity for him to victimize the family one more time.
That's
and he certainly
true.
took that opportunity. Also, it's a chance for him to say, I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm sorry means in a case like this.
It means that he's sorry that he got caught. That's what it means.
Do you think that there should be a limit on courtroom statements like that? We've got Debbie's over here shaking her head at me.
Yeah, there should be.
Do you think there should be limits on courtroom statements like that?
Absolutely. He's got the entire trial, the deliberations to make any statements he wants to make. He can take the stand at any time. It's his trial. It's his defense. He's in control of that team. If he's going to make a statement prior to his sentencing, that should be a scripted statement that is handed to the court beforehand. And if he veers in any way from that statement, the microphone should be turned off, and any statements that he makes should be struck from the record.
Right. We were wondering earlier whether or not his attorney had seen this statement before he made it.
No. I hold his attorneys entirely blameless. I hold the judge entirely blameless. This was the work of the devil. This came from someplace deep, deep, and very dark within this individual. This is something that could not have been anticipated by a rational human being. People have spent years trying to understand psychopathy, and we're just starting to get a handle on it now. We have a behavioral sciences unit that has profilers in the FBI. We have people that have put careers into this, and they're getting a handle on who these remorseless, conscienceless killers are. And we should take advantage of that, and we should deal with it. There are some things that they have in common, interestingly enough, when they're children. They have a love for fire. They have a love for torturing animals, and they're bedwetters. So be warned.
I want to add something.
Go ahead, Joe. I wanted you to get in here. Thank you.
Lorena Chandler, his defense attorney, who delivered a speech before the proceedings yesterday morning in which she stated how ridiculous she thought the death penalty was. After he made his statement, sent a deputy after me in the elevator, said she wanted to see me in the witness room. So I went in there, and she was in a state of hysterical agony and crying her eyes out. And she said that she wanted the family to know that she had no concept whatsoever that he would ever pull such a thing, and that she apologized. And you know, when a defense attorney apologizes, that's very unusual.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk to Marc Klaas and Joe Klaas a little bit more. And we're also going to talk about whether or not someone should be allowed to make those kinds of statements in the court. A lot of people here have questions about that. We'll be right back after this.
TalkBack Live is brought to you by Network MCI. How to get modern communications technology working for your business.
This is about what everybody in business is talking about. This is about the internet and intranet. But it's not more platitudes or promises. This is about how one company can give you access to the world's largest and fastest internet network, or help you create and support your own site. This is about how you get aboard the train and in the race. About how easy it can be to put the whole world together. Network MCI. That's how.
Prudential has helped protect and support families for over 120 years. With the largest capital base of any life insurance company in America. We've always been there for families, paying over 85 million claims. Today, Prudential touches 1 out of every 5 people in America. People think we have quite a history, but all we've ever really done is help insure the future. The Rock, we've been there, we'll be there.
Had enough of high credit card rates? You know, the average American pays about 17%. But you're not average. You deserve better. You pay all your bills on time. You deserve to pay less. Now that's more like it. A 7.9% MasterCard from a bank you know. Chase Manhattan. Call 1-800-636-2400 to apply for the card that's going to save you money. You can transfer your high-interest balances. And you don't pay an annual fee. So come on, call and apply for a Chase MasterCard with a fixed 7.9% rate until June 1997. Because credit like yours deserves an interest rate like ours. The 7.9% Chase MasterCard. Anything more is just too much. 1-800-636-2400.
You can feel it start to burn all through here. All you can think about is getting rid of it quickly. I even tried Tagamet HB, but it didn't work fast enough. Finally, I asked my doctor, and my doctor said Mylanta. Fast-acting Mylanta was made to work fast where heartburn hurts most. Soothing, on contact, all through here. It's so fast. It's nothing like Tagamet HB. My doctor said Mylanta.
Welcome back. We're talking with Marc and Joe Klaas about the death sentence and the killer of Marc's 12-year-old daughter, Polly. Now let's welcome Atlanta Fulton County Assistant DA Prosecuting Attorney Nancy Grace. Nancy, welcome. Thanks for being here. And Nancy can answer some of the questions. We've got a lot of questions here in the audience about some of the legal ramifications of this. One of the things I got over CompuServe, Carol Owen says, the verbal abuse generated by Mr. Davis came about by an interpretation of the right to free speech. I really feel that by committing acts of violence that require a death penalty, a person has forfeited the rights given to those citizens who are law-abiding citizens. I mean, I think that a lot of us kind of share that opinion, especially after what happened. Why do they have the right to make this statement?
Well, actually, the defendant, once he's at the sentencing phase and has been found guilty, he does not have an absolute right to speak. They are protected under the Constitution and have a right to remain silent if they want to, but never do they have a right to intimidate or torture the victim's family the way they did here. And frankly, the outrage was that the victim's father was removed from the courtroom and not the defendant at that time. He had no right under the Constitution to do what he did.
But I mean, what's to stop him? That's the point. What's to stop him?
The judge.
But it's after the fact. It's after he says these outrageous things.
I really think that the moment that he began to lash out at the victim's family was the time for him to be taken into custody and removed from the courtroom. And I think everybody pretty much agrees with that.
Right. What is your name? Lorraine. I thought it was Janet. Lorraine was making a similar comment earlier about that, about people just hearing bits and pieces of what happened.
Well, that's the problem, that maybe people have forgotten what happened to Polly. And so when they read the news, in my case, I didn't hear what happened in the courtroom. And I caught the tail end of a news piece this morning, and I saw the two gentlemen on the air, but I didn't know what happened until I saw the story, and I thought, well, no, is it true? No, what's going on? And it didn't take me long to realize it probably wasn't, but there was that moment. And I think there's probably a lot of people feel that.
So this man had the right, legally, he had the right to read this statement. But he also has the right for no one to see the statement beforehand?
Well, I really believe that the judge could have exercised more control in this case. On the other hand, you cannot expect a judge to be clairvoyant and guess what's about to occur, and it's very common for the defendant to want to speak at the time of sentencing. But just as Mr. Klaas said, he had a right to say anything he wanted to during the trial. He was afforded that privilege under the law. And I really do not agree with the judge in allowing this type of statement in front of the family after a guilty verdict.
But again, it's like after the horse is out of the barn, after he said it already, then what can you do about it?
I have seen many defendants taken forcibly from a courtroom when their behavior is outrageous, and I consider this outrageous.
Mark, do you think that's what should have happened yesterday?
Well, I hadn't thought about it, but I think that makes perfect sense. Absolutely. But this is what this is all about. You know, we don't ever start invoking our rights until we start violating them, it seems to me. And that goes for all of our rights. And, you know, there's a double standard of justice going on here. When we do something wrong, when I say we, I mean law-abiding citizens, we take responsibility for it and we make sure that it doesn't happen again. When these kinds of people do something wrong, they don't take responsibility. They say it's the fault of something that happened to them in their childhood. You know, this is a double standard. He has all the rights. He had the right to two attorneys.
You're saying that it is too. It is something that happened to him in his childhood.
Well, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that that's what he says. That's what they say. It's not what happened to him in his childhood. He's a psychopath. He's a psychopath. He is perhaps a born psychopath. I don't know about this, but he's a remorseless killer without conscience. He's been that for years. That's one of the sad facts of this case. They knew what he was when they put him back onto the street.
That's right,
everybody knew that he was going to re-victimize again. They didn't know who, what, or who, when, or where. That's the only thing they didn't know, but they knew that it would happen.
All right, we've got a question from AU. Neil from AU, you have a question? Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I hold nothing but sympathy for the family of this horrendous crime, but are we as a society so outraged by violent crimes that we are moving away from the philosophy that criminals have certain protected rights as well?
Well, he had his rights. I mean, what right has he been denied? He's even got the right to continue to torture my family after he's been convicted and prior to sentencing. He's got the right to try to kill my mother. I mean, that's basically what this was about. That's why I responded like I did, because he pulled something out of her soul.
Yeah, Neil, what are you concerned about that may have been violated? What rights are you talking about, Neil?
The rights of the criminal to talk out after the sentencing, like what's being debated right now during the show.
But again, I think you were saying that he doesn't have a right to do that.
I don't believe our founding forefathers mentioned anything in the Constitution about the right to speak out once you've been found guilty of torturing and murdering a little girl. I don't believe that that's mentioned in the Constitution. Now, it is mentioned that you have a right to remain silent. You don't have to speak against yourself or incriminate yourself at trial. You have a right to a lawyer. You have a right to due process under the law, but not a right to do what this defendant did. And I think, though, really the outrage we are all feeling is not so much that he spoke out in court, but about what he did to the victim and the victim's family. And this is just one more insult.
And you know what I think about the statements that people make? Don't most of them, if they're apologetic at all, just say, I'm sorry? But
yes.
What does I'm sorry
they
really
apologize,
do?
and then the fact that he used that brief opportunity to apologize to lash out at the victim's family is really outrageous.
All right, stand by. We're going to continue with this. Still to come, the face of America's Most Wanted, John Walsh, talks about the relentless search for the killer of his own son. And later, Jim Moret has a live report on O.J. Simpson's civil trial.
This is about the biggest idea in business communication today. About simple being smart, less being more. About how your business can get local and long-distance calling, plus everything from paging to conferencing, global to cellular. The whole menu, soup to nuts. From one team on one bill, from the one and only company in America with the power to put it all together. Network MCI. That's how.
No time here to get slowed down by irregularity. My doctor suggested Metamucil, the only leading brand with 100% natural fiber, like the fiber in healthy foods. Keeps me regular, so I can be a star.
Metamucil, the doctor's natural choice for regularity. Some people believe the world is getting smaller. At United Van Lines, we believe the world is still the same size. We've just helped to make it easier to get around. Let United show you how making a move to another country is a lot like making a move to another block. The same quality service that helped make us America's #1 mover has also made us one of the world's leading movers with over 1,000 agents worldwide. United Van Lines. Quality moves around the world.
We've known about Quai for years.
Quai has been repeatedly proven in human clinical studies to lower cholesterol, so much so that other garlic brands may rely on Quai's testing to support their own garlic claims.
It's the original odor-free garlic tablet.
Quai is recognized in the world's foremost medical journals because Quai has the quality, the research, and the proof.
So if you're concerned about cholesterol, watch your diet, exercise.
And make Quai part of your daily routine.
Why compromise? Take Quai. Also look for Ginseng, new from the makers of Quai.
According to Mutual Funds magazine, tough guys finish first. The fund industry's toughest portfolio managers, Lawrence Oriana and Hans Utsch, have made the Kaplan Fund the #1 fund since the market low of December 4th, 1987. The fund invests in small companies with substantial growth prospects. The Kaplan Fund was awarded Morningstar's highest 5-star rating. Call now for your prospectus, 800-824-0600. The Kaufman Fund, 800-824-0600.
We're challenging shoppers to compare their Tilex to X14 mildew stain remover.
The X14 side is brighter. What used to be disgusting-looking mildew, you just spray, and it's gone.
X14, it's better.
Sunday, CNN explores the issues facing America. One nation, indivisible. For many Americans, a long-lost ideal. With the country facing deep divisions. Divisions based on race, wealth, religion. Is there reason to fear those we perceive as different? The ties that bind may also be the ties that divide us and them. On the next Democracy in America, Sunday, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Joining us now, a man who can empathize with the Klaas family, the host of America's Most Wanted, John Walsh. And John, thanks for being here. First, I have to ask you your response to this overwhelming support that you received after your show canceled.
Well, it's heartwarming. Fox received over 85,000 letters. 37 governors wrote to Fox. About 40 members of Congress and every major law enforcement agency, and said television's more than just making money and ratings. This show has saved lives and caught criminals, and I am absolutely thrilled that the Fox executives, David Hill, who's now head of the network, and Chase Carey, listened to the public and said America's Most Wanted is going back on in November.
Well, I think you were only able to give yourself maybe a quick breath before they made that decision, too, and that's remarkable. Now, of course, as I said, you certainly can understand what's going on with the Klaas family. How did you react to what happened yesterday?
Well, I was absolutely appalled. I sat and watched that bizarre behavior that went on in that courtroom, and I think a lot of people are missing the point here. Richard Allen Davis was a repeat offender who kidnapped 3 women, raped them, tortured them. One of them, he beat her with a ball-peen hammer and partially paralyzed her, and was released out on the street to be able to kill Polly Klaas. Then when he confessed to the murder, in most states when someone confesses to a murder, there is no trial. A judge sentenced them. In California, the Klaas family had to go through the torture of a long, long trial and learn what happened to Polly. They had to sit there through the sentencing phase. Once Richard Allen Davis was convicted, then there was a sentencing phase. At a cost to the taxpayers of the state of California, including victims like the Klaas family who pays taxes, experts at $400 a day, $800 a day said, spare Richard Allen Davis the death penalty because he couldn't get a date when he was young. He was drunk. He was whatever. Whatever he said that bothered him when he was young, spare him the death penalty. The Klaas family had to wait a week for a jury. The same jury that Richard Allen Davis flipped the bird to and blew a kiss to Marc Klaas, this remorseless psychopath, they had to sit there and wait for that death penalty. Yesterday was the ultimate transgression. This man should have never been allowed to make a statement. He was convicted. In only 20 states can victims make an impact statement, and I was so proud of Marc Klaas and his family yesterday for the courage of this man. He's become a friend of mine for 3 years. He got up there and spoke about his beautiful daughter and said, listen, send this man to the next life, because I've profiled guys in America's Most Wanted that have killed children and gotten out and killed again. And for the judge to allow this man to rant and rave, for journalists to put any credibility to what he said about Polly and her father, to let this man, let me just say one thing as the father of a murdered child. Marc Klaas should have never been removed from that courtroom. Victims have no rights. This guy will get $10 million worth of appeals. It'll be years before he's ever executed. What they should have done was the judge would have said, shut up, that's enough, and they should have dragged Richard Allen Davis out of that courtroom by his hair.
That's unanimous agreement here. Yeah, you brought up the appeals process. Another thing that we've been talking about here is the fact that it may take 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely.
Because of the California system for him to actually be sentenced to, I mean, he's been sentenced to death, but actually have the sentence carried out.
In Florida, Ted Bundy, who tortured and was convicted of killing 27 girls, probably killed 50. It cost $12 million to finally convict this smug psychopath who laughed in the courtroom and wore tennis gear to his hearings. And at his third final death warrant, the governor of Florida, Bob Graham, who's now a U.S. senator, signed his third death warrant. I asked the law firm that represented Ted Bundy, why did you insult the taxpayers of Florida by sending us a bill for $12 million? If you are so philosophically and morally opposed to the death penalty, which you have every right to be, why did you insult us by not doing this case pro bono? Lots of law firms take on criminal cases for free, pro bono. They said we had a lot of Xeroxing costs. $12 million. I can't imagine what it's going to take to finally put Richard Allen Davis where he should be, and that's in the next life.
Yeah, let me give Marc a chance to respond to that. Marc?
Thank you. I mean, John's absolutely right, and America is a better place because John Walsh is doing what he's doing, believe me. It will take up to 3 years for an appeals attorney to be assigned to Richard Allen Davis. From what I understand from talking to the Attorney General's office, this may be some form of protest by the trial lawyers against the death penalty. Even with the habeas corpus reform on the federal level, we're then looking at 5 years worth of appeals process. So best case scenario, we're looking at Richard Allen Davis lasting another 8 years. What he did when he murdered my daughter is he ensured that from the day he was caught, he would spend more time on this earth than she ever had. And I think that that's outrageous. I think that that should not be allowed in our society.
That is a remarkable way to look at it, too. That's a remarkable way to look at it. If this thing drags out more than 12 years, you're right, she was only 12 years old.
That's right.
That's amazing. All right, we have someone with a question from AU. Go ahead.
Hi. This question is for Mr. Klaas.
Yes.
I would like to know what kind of support, community support your family has received throughout this entire ordeal.
My family has received a tremendous amount of support from the entire country. I think one of the best people I've ever talked to about what I was going through, in fact, was John Walsh. The first time we met in a studio about 3 years ago, he gave me some tremendous advice and told me that I should work with people, not work against people. I followed that advice to the T, and I have gotten support from individuals. I've gotten support from communities. I've gotten support from states. I've gotten support from every level of government. I can't even tell you, my family has become stronger and better because of what happened. In the last 24 hours, since Richard Allen Davis leveled his hellish charges, we have fielded over 1,000 phone calls between my family and my friends, and they have been 100% supportive. And I just have to thank you, America, for understanding what we're going through and for taking this stand against evil.
You know, you've already been instrumental in the 3 strikes law in California. Are you going to work on some new legislation that might have something to do with, say, limiting this kind of speech that can be made in court?
Well, Yolanda, it is the mission of our foundation, which incidentally is the Klaas Foundation for Children, not the Polly Klaas Foundation. We are separate, to create an atmosphere that will be protective of the children in our society. There are already many, many victims' rights organizations out there that are working on these kinds of courtroom reforms already. Certainly I have talked to John, and I have been with John at the White House in a ceremony where President Clinton joined Senator Dole, excuse me, in advocating a victims' rights amendment in this country. I think that's what's happening here is the pendulum of justice, or the scales of justice, are starting to slowly swing towards the rights of victims and towards giving equal protection to individuals like myself, so that we will not be removed from courtrooms when monsters like Richard Allen Davis are allowed to get up and make repulsive statements in front of the world.
Exactly. All right, Mark, hold on for a second. Hold on, gentlemen. We're going to take a break here. We're going to continue this discussion. We're going to talk about how to keep your children safe from predators. We're also going to talk about the media's involvement in this, how the media was able to help you in terms of finding Polly's murderer, and also how the media has played a role in all this. Also, we're going to get a live report from Jim Murray on what's happening in the O.J. Simpson civil trial. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
Tonight on Larry King Live, Robert Bork tells why he thinks America's on the way to ruin. Tonight, 9 Eastern on CNN.
There's two new faces in Washington, both champions of the liberal cause, lifelong Democrats, now about to face their toughest challenge. Geraldine Ferraro and Bill Press go head-to-head with conservatives Robert Novak and John Sununu. And when they meet...
Excuse me, guys.
Sparks will fly. Crossfire, new faces, same attitude. Weeknights on CNN. Showbiz Today, weekdays 5:30 Eastern on CNN.
Hello, I'm Denise Dillon at the CNN Center in Atlanta. TalkBack Live continues in a few moments, but first, let's take a look at our top stories. Continued fighting between Israeli troops and Palestinians has claimed more lives. At least 7 people have been killed in clashes today. At least 41 Palestinians and 13 Israeli soldiers have died during 3 days of fighting. The violence started when Israel opened a tunnel near an Islamic shrine in Jerusalem. Authorities in California say a deadly prison disturbance is now under control. The disturbance broke out earlier today at California State Prison Sacramento, commonly known as Folsom Prison. Officials say one inmate was killed and 13 others were wounded when 2 groups of prisoners started fighting. A bill overhauling the nation's immigration laws is closer to passage. Key Senate sources tell CNN that congressional Republican leaders and the White House have reached a compromise on immigration legislation. The sources say tough provisions affecting legal immigrants have been removed from the bill, making it a measure chiefly dealing with illegal immigrants. Jury selection resumed today in O.J. Simpson's wrongful death trial. For the latest, let's check in with CNN's Jim Murray in Santa Monica, California. Jim.
Thank you, Denise. The process is moving ahead slowly but steadily, nearing the 2nd week of this trial. To give you an idea, some 82 people have been questioned so far. 43 of those prospective jurors move on to the next phase. 7 people were questioned this morning in the early session. 4 were kept, 3 were excused, including one African-American man who said he found it hard to believe that a man would kill the mother of his children, and a black woman was excused because she thought that it was unfair that O.J. Simpson had to stand trial here after being acquitted in the criminal proceeding. Now at the lunch break, Fred Goldman came downstairs to address reporters, mindful of the gag order, but he felt compelled to talk to them about the Ron Goldman Justice Fund.
Every penny that has been donated to the Ron Goldman Justice Fund with the subtraction of literally the cost of that mailing, go 100% toward the civil trial. It is not being spent anywhere else.
Fred Goldman said that they have received hundreds of thousands of dollars so far, but that the cost of putting on this litigation far exceeds his wildest dreams. I spoke with him privately upstairs in the hallway of the courthouse, and we talked about his calling into Larry King Live last night. He felt compelled to do so because one of the guests is forwarding a theory that Ron, his son, was the intended target, not Nicole. And talking to him overall about this process of choosing a jury, Fred Goldman told me that he's never served on a jury, but he hopes that he can in the future. I'm Jim Moray reporting live from Santa Monica, California. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks, Jim, for that update. Checking the latest numbers on Wall Street now. The Dow is down 2.5 points. The Nasdaq is up just over 2 points. I'm Denise Dillon in Atlanta. Stay with us for more Talk Back Live.
Hello, welcome back to Talk Back Live. We're continuing this conversation. I'm Yolanda Gaskins in for Susan Rook. We're talking about people who prey on children, what you can do to protect your own child from predators. Our guests are Marc and Joe Klaas, father and grandfather of Polly Klaas. Her killer was sentenced to death during tense courtroom proceedings yesterday. Also, America's Most Wanted host, John Walsh. Here in Atlanta, we also have prosecuting attorney Nancy Grace. And we've been talking about ways to keep your children safe, and also a lot of comments in the audience on the appeals process. We were talking a little bit about that. What kind of legislation can we, anybody who wants to go in on this one, just jump in. What kind of legislation can we push for to try to keep this process from taking 10 to 12 years? John?
Well, let me tell you, every former Supreme Court justice has agreed, whether they were liberal, moderate, or conservative, that the appeals process in the United States is an abomination, that it is too long, there are too many appeals involved. So we see countries like Germany and other countries where you get a certain amount of appeals, you're allowed to expend a certain amount of resources, and then your sentence is carried out. There seems to be no limit on the number of appeals that you can do here in the United States. First, on the state level, Richard Allen Davis will take this all the way through the state of California, probably to the California Supreme Court. Then he can go to the United States Supreme Court. And like the case of Ted Bundy, when the United States Supreme Court didn't want to hear his case, an Atlanta appeals court, a federal appeals court, stayed his execution twice. I believe that criminals should have rights. Yes, absolutely. The United States Constitution has been amended 27 times. 4 for criminals, never for victims. We have a victims' rights constitutional amendment before the Congress right now. But there has to be some amount of reasonable appeals. Nobody wants to see an innocent man go to death row. But this endless use of our money, the taxpayers' monies and the victims' money, and this endless appeal sends one simple message. You can't get justice.
It's an amazing thing, spending millions and millions of dollars on someone who has been sentenced to death for killing an innocent victim. Marc, you had something you wanted to say, didn't you?
Well, actually, I am new to the appeals process. What I do know is that there has been some federal habeas corpus appeal which limits the filings to the Supreme Court to all of the collateral appeals have to go at one time, and that does cut down the system somewhat. But still, we're looking at a long time before this guy goes. Yeah. And you know, John takes the lead on this. John has been following this. John helped write the Victims' Rights Amendment, and I'm with him.
And Nancy.
Actually, as y'all were speaking, you actually left out a level of appeal. It goes from the state Supreme Court, as you mentioned, onto the middle rung of the federal district court, then up to the circuit court, then up to the Supreme Court. So when you were referring back to that Atlanta court that stayed Bundy's appeal, that's that middle tier of federal court. There's several federal levels of appeal. There is a case pending now that is attempting to limit the number of appeals, such as Mr. Klaas has suggested, and I can only hope that our U.S. Supreme Court goes along with that.
I'm looking at one of the faxes that just came in. Wayne in New York says if he's allowed to make a final statement, make it a final statement that waives his right to appeal and execute him the next day. That may be a little bit harsh. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk a little bit more. We've been trying to get to how to protect your children. We'll also show you a toll-free hotline number to report a missing child or the sighting of one to the National Center for Missing or Exploited Children. Stay with us.
This is about the biggest idea in business communication today. About simple being smart, less being more. About how your business can get local and long-distance calling, plus everything from paging to conferencing, global to cellular. The whole menu, soup to nuts. From one team on one bill, from the one and only company in America with the power to put it all together. Network MCI. That's how.
Cool, crisp, fresh. Discover the feeling of Fix-It & Fresh. It's a strong, long hold. A secure, fresh approach to wearing dentures. And the cool, fresh sensation gives you the confidence to live life without limits. Try a fresh approach.
We met when we were chemistry graduate students at Harvard. Irving and I were married for a year, and then he became a pharmaceutical company researcher. Irving wanted very much to develop a drug to target the HIV protease. He was just immensely excited at the potential of this project, and he wanted so much to see a drug developed. His work got everyone thinking and working on new ways to fight HIV. There are many pharmaceutical companies that are working to develop protease inhibitors. Irving was very driven by the fact that life can be short and is precious.
We've known about Quad for years.
Quai has been repeatedly proven in human clinical studies to lower cholesterol, so much so that other garlic brands may rely on Quai's testing to support their own garlic claims.
It's the original odor-free garlic tablet.
Quai is recognized in the world's foremost medical journals because Quai has the quality, the research, and the proof.
So if you're concerned about cholesterol, watch your diet, exercise,
And make Quai part of your daily routine.
Why compromise? Take Quai. Also look for ginseng, new from the makers of Quai.
Welcome back to TalkBack. One of the things that we wanted to talk about this segment is the media and the media's involvement in all of this. And Joe, I know that you have spent many years professionally before the camera, isn't that right?
Oh, I've been before the camera, behind the camera, I've been before the mic, I've been an AP correspondent, I've done everything.
So we had a gentleman here who was saying, now what was your question you were talking about earlier?
I'm talking about if Polly was a little girl from South Atlanta or the Bronx in New York, would she have gotten the same attention that this case is getting right now?
Right. He's talking about the media attention.
Oh,
and because you knew how the media worked, was that helpful to you?
We simply went to the media instead of resisting the media. Too many parents make the mistake of thinking the media is going to exploit them, and they hide from the media. We did just the opposite. We walked up to the media and said, we're going to exploit you, you're going to find Polly for us. And they loved it, and all of you people helped. And it was the media that solved this crime, and there would have been no trial if it hadn't been for the media. Polly's murder would have disappeared after 3 weeks, like thousands of other murders have.
I think that was his point, exactly.
So any parents can do this. Any parents can seek out the media. It's better than putting up flyers. Put up the flyers, but go to the media where you can get millions of impressions. The first program to show Polly on a nationwide scale was America's Most Wanted. And that started the whole thing nationally.
All right, all right, great. Larry from California has a question. Go ahead, Larry.
Hi, Mr. Klaas. How you doing?
Good.
Our prayers are with you and your family. I don't know how you stood up through all this. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I just don't know how I would react to what happened in the courtroom yesterday if I was in your shoes.
We've got a lot of people here in the audience shaking their heads in agreement.
I think that none of us know how we would react in any situation until we are pressed and faced with that situation. I take strength in knowing that I have a great family behind me. I have a marvelous wife, and I have the support of an entire country. That's the thing. In this fight that John and I are taking for the safety of our children, there is tremendous support. Most good people, and most people are good, want this to happen. They want our children to be safe. They want our children to be protected. They want our children to have opportunities to grow up into good citizens and be able to pass that legacy along to their children. And we have to do something to ensure, and we have to all work together to ensure that the world our children inherit from us is safer than the world we live in today.
Now, John, you just had an incident happen in terms of the search for the killer of your son. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we had another heartbreaking setback. Otis Toole, the prime suspect, who was a convicted serial killer in prison in Florida for a long time, died a week and a half ago. With his death, he took to the grave any knowledge or confession about Adam's murder. He told cellmates, other criminals, that he killed Adam, that he hated police, he would never talk to police, and that he wanted to talk to someone. And unfortunately, the police department involved in Adam's case never got up there, were never notified that he was sick. Henry Lee Lucas, his partner now, another infamous serial killer in jail in Texas, has said that Toole confessed to him. And it's just another heartbreaking development that someone wasn't allowed in there. And I said, send a journalist in, send a rabbi, a priest, a minister, send somebody in to talk to Otis Toole. Do not let this man die without making a statement.
Did you even know that he died of cirrhosis of the liver? Did you even know that he was ill?
I knew that he had AIDS. We did not know he was dying of cancer. And I had begged the local Hollywood police to be sure that they stayed in contact with the prison. Don't let this man die unless you get some type of statement. He won't talk to police. Let me send an expert in there. Let a professor, let a journalist go in there. We were denied that. And I think it's another incident of where victims have no rights in this country. The criminals have all the rights.
Well, where did things go wrong, John?
Well,
what system wasn't there supposedly a system in place that should have automatically notified the police of what was going on with this man's health?
Well, everybody's pointing the finger at somebody else. The prison says, yes, we have prisoners in here, that police can put their names on a list if they're sick or near death, that we can notify them. The Hollywood police, according to the prison, never even put their names on that list. The Hollywood police say that they were not notified, now that Otis Toole was sick. Now, I'm a great supporter of law enforcement. I work very, very closely with him.
Yes.
But Adam's case has been bungled from the beginning. I only learned several months ago that they had lost Otis Toole's car, an entire car, that there was bloody carpet in the back.
Other evidence was
Absolutely.
also lost.
Crucial evidence was lost in this case, and this is the heartbreak for us. We have no closure. We will probably never have any closure. But I think it shows the same thing that this trial with Richard Allen Davis showed. Number one, that it can happen to anyone. It happened to Adam Walsh. It happened to Polly Klaas. Number two, that these predators like Otis Toole, who was a criminal all his life, who was a psychopathic serial killer, torturer of people, and Richard Allen Davis have all the rights. And if anything good comes out of the Polly Klaas trial, millions of Americans saw yesterday just what we're up against. We're up against these remorseless, psychopath, ruthless predators of the weak, of our women and our children. And I've learned one thing on America's Most Wanted. You can study these guys for the rest of your life, but they hurt people, they get out and they hurt them again. And I know one thing. You hunt them down and you separate them from society, and you keep them, like Arthur Shawcross, a guy who killed a 7-year-old girl and a 9-year-old girl in New York State. We begged that he not be released. He told psychiatrists, I cannot be cured. I really hate women. I like to have sex with children, but I really hate women. New York State released Arthur Shawcross. He killed 11 women in 2 years in Rochester, New York. That community was never alerted that he was a monster, a cannibal who ate part of his 2 victims, his 2 children's livers, and that he was released into Rochester. And I'll say one thing. You can debate the death penalty as a deterrent. It may not stop anyone else from killing somebody, but I'll tell you what, if New York State had killed Arthur Shawcross, those 11 women and their 14 surviving children, those 11 women would be walking around in Rochester, New York right now.
All right,
These are animals and predators, and now I think society has to realize we need to do more to keep our children safe and get these people off the streets.
All right, John, we're going to talk. We're going to take a break here, and we're going to talk when we come back about some of the things that you can do to try to keep the streets safe and keep the children safe. We'll be right back.
Access the most up-to-date weather forecast on the web at CNN.com. 4-day forecast for over 400 cities worldwide. Forecast in satellite maps for 35 world regions, plus Doppler radar updated hourly. CNN Interactive Storm Center tracks the latest weather-making news, and Storm File traces the history of headline-making storms. The most complete international weather, now available at CNN.com.
This is about what everybody in business is talking about. This is about the internet and intranet. But it's not more platitudes or promises. This is about how one company can give you access to the world's largest and fastest internet network, or help you create and support your own site. This is about how you get aboard the train and in the race. About how easy it can be to put the whole world together. Network MCI. That's how.
Some would say going 100,000 copies without an unscheduled service call is impressive. Sharp would say, it's a beginning. Sharp. Call for your free interactive kit of copier solutions.
Introducing new improved Super Polygrip.
They've really improved the way that it holds.
New Super Polygrip has up to 30% more holding power.
It's new, it's improved, and it's the ultimate. Perhaps I'll start eating more apples.
Some people believe the world is getting smaller. At United Van Lines, we believe the world is still the same size. We've just helped to make it easier to get around. Let United show you how making a move to another country is a lot like making a move to another block. The same quality service that helped make us America's #1 mover has also made us one of the world's leading movers with over 1,000 agents worldwide. United Van Lines. Quality moves around the world.
We've known about Quai for years.
Quai has been repeatedly proven in human clinical studies to lower cholesterol, so much so that other garlic brands may rely on Quai's testing to support their own garlic claims.
It's the original odor-free garlic tablet.
Quai is recognized in the world's foremost medical journals because Quai has the quality, the research, and the proof.
So if you're concerned about cholesterol, watch your diet, exercise,
and make Quai part of your daily routine.
Why compromise? Take Quai. Also look for Ginseng, new from the makers of Quai.
At Sharp, we have a full line of copiers that suit the needs of your business, no matter how big your business becomes. Sharp. Call for your free interactive kit of copier solutions.
Saturday on CNN's Evans and Novak. From Damascus, Roland Evans brings you an exclusive, rare one-on-one conversation with Syrian President Hafez Assad. See this timely interview Saturday, 5:30 Eastern, only on CNN.
If you're in the Atlanta area, for free tickets, call 1-800-410-4CNN.
Welcome back to TalkBack Live. All of the comments are coming in that are pretty much saying the same thing. They're agreeing with everything you said. I want to get some of the comments from our audience. Let's start with Todd.
Yes, most of America does not have experience with this kind of event that happened. What kind of change has occurred with the way you view the world when this tragedy and the celebrity happens so close to home?
Well, I guess, Marc, that's for you.
Well, I'm not quite sure what to say. Law enforcement has totally changed the way they handle crimes against children. Media is much more aware of what happens when crimes are committed against children. Communities react much better when crimes are committed against children. Children and parents have much more awareness. We're starting to get a handle on the psychopaths in our society. So, you know, if anything, some good does come out of these things, but certainly the price is far, far too dear to pay.
All right, David?
I can understand an appeals process for someone who claims they're innocent, but for someone like him who has admitted it, I just don't understand how he can appeal something that he's admitted he's done.
Yeah, maybe Nancy should take that one.
Well, unfortunately, it has to go up to an appellate court for them to determine whether or not he has the grounds for appeal. So the result is all defendants appeal all their convictions, and then an appellate court sorts out legitimate claims as opposed to illegitimate claims.
And this man pleaded not guilty. He never pleaded guilty. He always pleaded not guilty.
Correct.
And maintains that today.
Even at sentencing, I believe he was still trying to claim he was not guilty.
Yeah, all right. We're out of time. We had several more comments from our audience. They really wanted to express their sympathy to you and their support. We're out of time. I'm glad all of our guests could join us today, and thanks to American University. TalkBack will be back Monday at 3 Eastern, talking about this weekend's biggest stories. Flip Spiceland is up next with a weather update, and then on Inside Politics, you've got the play of the week on Inside Politics. Bye now.
Tonight on Larry King Live, Robert Bork tells why he thinks America's on the way to ruin. Tonight, 9 Eastern on CNN.
When you're smiling,
He was like an old friend.
when
One of
you're
the best-loved entertainers ever, Dean Martin. Heartland Music presents the best of Dean Martin.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore.
22 classics.
Return to me.
All Dean's great songs.
You're nobody till some.
But it's not in stores. Please order now.
Sweet, sweet memories made of this.
Call 1-800-257-1257. To save COD charges, use your credit card or send check or money order for $14.98 for cassettes or $17.98 for CD, plus $3.50 shipping to Dean Martin, P.O. Box 2919, Atlanta, Georgia.
News travels fast.
This just into headline news.
What happens there can be seen here, now. That's why people everywhere turn to headline news. For continuously updated news, business, sports, and entertainment, staying in touch with the world has never been easier. Because it doesn't matter what hour of the day it is, the time for headline news is always now. Headline News, a CNN network.
At the center of our justice system is balance. So we matched a hard-hitting former prosecutor with a tough-as-nails defense attorney. Together, they take a provocative look at today's most compelling cases and put the law on trial. Greta Van Susteren and Roger Cossack. The issues, the courts, and your rights. Burden of Proof. Weekdays, 12:30 Eastern on CNN.
This is CNN.
Hi, everyone. CNN Weather Center. I'm Flip Spiceland. We have all week long been watching a very strong storm system move out of the Rockies across the Plain States and now moving into the east, and still the threat of severe weather and certainly very heavy rainfall down here along the Gulf Coast. Some flooded areas in Houston today in and around Houston. Even part of I-10 has been reported to be underwater. Rampant flooding in Oklahoma yesterday. There are all kinds of flash flood warnings in effect in this area, and the rainfall extends to the north and back into the Great Lakes area. Snow's about over. I don't think we're going to see much more snowfall. There was some this morning down here, the Colorado-New Mexico border. Heavy snow yesterday in the Black Hills. But you know what? Denver saw about 3 inches of snowfall. Tomorrow, 70 degrees. In the far west, quite warm. Take a look at this area right here. It is our weather point of the hour, and you can see the line of showers. But they have diminished and diminished greatly. I've not been picking up reports of severe thunderstorm warnings yet. A severe thunderstorm watch does remain in effect. This is Hurricane Isidore in the middle of the Atlantic, a threat to no landmass. Wind speeds, however, have gone up to 105 miles an hour. If the forecast is correct, it will not get stronger than this, and within 36 to 48 hours will start to turn more to the north and then begin to weaken. Here's our national radar summary. I want to show you where the severe thunderstorm watch remains in effect down here along the Gulf Coast. There it is. Now, take a look at your forecast weather map.
for later today. I'll put the map in motion, and you'll see this strong cold front pushing to the east. The early part of the weekend does not bode well in the eastern one-third of the nation, although the East Coast itself may hang on with one more nice day, but by Saturday evening, I think the rainfall there will be approaching. And that's the latest look at the weather. We'll have more coming up later, and now stay tuned for Inside Politics.